more than 120 billion zlotys or $4 billion. This is the impressive amount that Poland has spent on aid to Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion. This includes both humanitarian and military support.
Poland was one of the first countries to supply Ukraine with tanks, ammunition, and defense equipment on a large scale. In 2022 and 2023, it supplied, among other things, more than 300 tanks, as well as armored personnel carriers, artillery systems, air defense systems, drones, mortars, assault rifles, and over 100 million rounds of ammunition. 10 airplanes and 10 helicopters were also sent to Ukraine. Between 2022 and 2024, Poland provided Ukraine with 47 packages of military aid. The value of the equipment delivered in just 2022 amounted to 7.23 billion zlotys, and in 2023 and 2024, another 5.63 billion. Poland also supplied more than 19,500 Starlink terminals, providing the Ukrainian armed forces with stable satellite communication. This accounted for almost half of all terminals used in Ukraine by the end of 2023.
Poland's assistance to Ukraine is not the result of romantic enthusiasm, but is highly pragmatic. Our neighbors understand that if Ukraine falls, Poland will be next in line.
After all, a fighting Ukraine gives Europe time to better prepare for threats. This time is needed, and we have no right to waste a single minute. We will be held accountable for every minute.
318 tanks were delivered to Kiev by Warsaw. Among them are modernized T-72s, M1Rs, PT-91s, and Leopard 2S. This is more than anyone else has provided. The total value of gratuitous aid, including training, logistics, repairs, and medical support, exceeded $4 billion by March of this year. Specifically, in 2022, it amounted to $1.6 billion, and in 2023 to 2024, $1.3 billion. Poland also provided
Poland's military aid: 586 armored vehicles, 137 artillery systems, 10 Mi-24 helicopters, 10 MiG-29 fighter jets, 287 man-portable air defense systems, 44 air-to-air missiles, more than 100 units of small arms, 89 mortars, 4 Grad multiple rocket launch systems, and over 100 million rounds of ammunition.
In addition to gratuitous aid, just in 2022 and 2023, Ukraine purchased weapons from Poland worth more than 2.2 billion euros. The largest contract was a deal for 54 Krab self-propelled howitzers. Of these, 36 have already been delivered. The countries are establishing joint production of weapons and equipment. The parties have agreed on the joint production of 125mm tank ammunition. There are also plans for joint production of other weapons and military equipment, including the placement of Polish companies' manufacturing facilities in Ukraine.
It is necessary to mobilize the industry. Polish and Ukrainian industry must make joint investments not only during the war, but also to develop their deterrence potential. These initiatives are very much needed. It is also very important for us to improve economic relations. We will support Ukraine.
Poland has become the main hub for supplying weapons to Ukraine. Also, during the war, more than 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been trained on the territory of the country. With each year of the war, the assistance and joint cooperation between Poland and Ukraine only grows stronger.
More and more Russian cities are plunging into darkness. If Russians attack the Ukrainian energy system, Ukraine will attack the Russian one. The Ukrainian authorities warned about this, and the defense forces have clearly demonstrated it.
The roof was blown off.
For example, this is what the Voronezh CHP plant looks like now. It was attacked on November 9th. Reports say there were at least 3 hits. After the explosions, part of the city was left without electricity.
Voronezh is a very serious city, known for its significance. There are a lot of enterprises in Voronezh that work for the military, including electronics. There are aviation enterprises there, both military and civilian.
This is exactly the difference between Russian and Ukrainian strikes on the energy system. In addition to a deserved response, the goal of the Ukrainian defenders is to plunge into darkness those energy infrastructure facilities that support the operation of the Russian defense industry.
It has a dual purpose. First, to really show Russia that it's not only them who can do this, but we can also respond in kind to certain things. And really what we are trying to do here is to try to stop their powerful and relentless machine and to undermine the entire military-industrial complex, which, as you know, is actively and continuously working against us in this ongoing war.
I think this trend will continue. At first glance, it may seem like pecking away at the liver of the Russian energy system, but gradually, various elements of the infrastructure will be knocked out. At first glance, it might just seem satisfying that somewhere in Belgorod or Voronezh people had to sit without electricity. But let's think about it. In some ways, the configuration of the Russian energy system might be similar to ours in that the same power lines can supply not only residential areas, but also, for example, industry and railway transport.
That's why none of these attacks are random. The goal is not just to respond, but to respond painfully, so that the facilities supplying power to the military-industrial enterprises of the aggressor country can no longer fuel the Kremlin's ambitions.
When various elements of Russia's energy system are gradually undermined, it primarily means that somewhere a train carrying something the Russians need for the war will come to a halt, or there will be rolling blackouts at a factory producing goods important to Russia.
And according to experts, not all such enterprises are located deep in the rear. Many facilities are located not far from the Ukrainian border. For example, strategic Tu-95MS bombers are repaired in Taganrog, and one of the manufacturers of components for the Russian missile program, specifically solid fuel for Iskanders, is located just 150 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. It is entirely possible to plunge them into electrical darkness. There are undoubtedly such important facilities for the Russian military-industrial complex in the Moscow region, and for that matter, even in Moscow itself.
I think the psychological factor when Moscow is plunged into complete darkness is much more effective than if we just restore a few factories there, because it's precisely this main mass, this so-called office plankton, who live off the regions, who will ultimately and finally come to realize that something significant is happening and that something truly needs to be done.
In this way, Ukraine will kill not 2, but 3 birds with 1 stone at once. A fair response, the paralysis of Russian military-industrial facilities and psychological pressure on the Kremlin. Sounds like the perfect target for the next blackout.
After a series of Russian drone incursions, the vulnerability of European airspace has become obvious. Old air defense systems can no longer cope. Cheap attack drones flying in swarms break through traditional defense schemes and deplete stocks of expensive missiles and combat aircraft. It is precisely this challenge that has prompted the European Union to launch an ambitious drone wall initiative.
Virtually all countries, regardless of their specific region, whether it is Eastern, Northern, or Western Europe, have faced this new and increasingly complex type of hybrid action by the Russian Federation in the skies. These actions include violations of national airspace, and the need to respond is now an undeniable fact.
The idea is to create a unified defense system along the EU's eastern border, where sensors, radars, satellites, interceptors, and artificial intelligence will be able to detect, classify, and neutralize threats in real time.
We need to build a European system that will enable Europe to develop advanced drone solutions, taking inspiration from what is already being done in Ukraine.
It is Ukraine that will play a key role in the development. 4 years of war have made Ukrainian experience critically valuable. Here, tactics are tested, technologies are refined, and production chains for combat and counter-drone systems are formed under real combat conditions, not on a training ground.
Now, drones have changed absolutely everything. And the best drone experts in the world are Ukrainians. I saw a video of a situation where a swarm of drones goes up against a single soldier. Even a single drone can lure a soldier into a trap while another attacks him from the other side. So we are already seeing how drones are becoming increasingly deadly. This will change the way wars are fought in every country. It's not just about drones, but also about how to protect your roads, how to secure your airports, how to prevent drones from invading your territory. That's why Europe needs to quickly learn from Ukrainians how to defend its skies.
Ukraine offers not only experience but also an industrial base. Local manufacturers such as Ticeks can supply equipment, train operators, share combat experience and standardized solutions to meet Europe's needs. The integration of Ukrainian technologies and expertise will make it possible to create adaptive, fast and cost-effective systems capable of operating in real combat conditions. Funding is already being worked out through the CEF instrument and the EU defense budget, which provides up to 100 billion euros for the eastern flank. The drone wall's flank includes 3 directions: drone, land and sea lines of defense, which must be integrated into a single system capable of controlling the airspace from the Baltic to the Black Sea.
Judging by the information and the news we read from different countries, self-determination is at the stage of finding or forming a consensus between the internal situation in each individual country, which may require changes in legislation, and how to coordinate this at a common level. In other words, in order to reach a common position at the level of the European Union countries and NATO countries, it needs to be agreed upon within each country first. Understanding that in some places this requires harmonizing legislation, while in others it requires more thorough explanation to the public so that actions are clear, there is support and there is an understanding, which is important for countries with democracy, with ongoing electoral processes, where any step can be used by the opposition.
This project is part of a larger strategy called Shy 2030. These are 4 initiatives aimed at strengthening the EU's external borders, protecting against drones, creating a unified air defense system, and even providing space services for military needs. The main goal is to deter Russia and Belarus, especially considering that by 2030, the capabilities of the Russian armed forces may increase. The plan is to strengthen the eastern border by the end of 2026 and by 2027 to deploy a drone defense wall. At the same time, the EU is creating an integrated air defense system. Space services for intelligence, communications, and navigation will support defense tasks. However, experts warn that bureaucracy and slow processes in Europe could delay the project. But if Europe manages to quickly establish this cooperation, the 2030 Shield could become a new line of defense that will protect not only EU countries, but also Ukraine.